Hi everyone, my name is Rizvi. I am the creative marketing manager here at Independent. I handle all the digital marketing and the creative ideas for our artist releases. And my goal is to, of course, get more eyeballs on the track or the releases, but kind of do it in a fun and creative way. And I think the biggest struggle this year has been everything has been digital. So I'm really happy for this symposium to kind of like get your feedback and kind of your perspective on AR and 3D and how that kind of fuses together and where it's going and where it's heading. And how it goes is I have a couple questions on my end, but we'll keep it super organic. I'm not going to go through down a laundry list, but I have a couple questions that you guys can answer, and feel free to chime in anytime. But I'll go ahead and start with introduction. So Rene, if you want to go first and introduce yourself, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm Rene Amador. I'm the co-founder and CEO of ARWALL. We're a company that basically creates virtual systems. Started off doing virtual production with LED backdrops way back in 2016 and ended up starting a revolution there in the filmmaking and TV industry. And most recently, we've come out with an interactive version of our technology, which is targeted towards retailers and gaming. That's been very exciting. We won the CES prize for Best AR Experience at the Dreamland XR program earlier this year. Fortunately, during the pandemic, we've seen a huge transition happening in both those verticals. So we've been very lucky and we've been nimble and basically responded to the new needs of the market. And we'll talk about that during this chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Alex?
Hey, I'm Alex Mcleod. I'm a visual artist from Toronto. I work in primarily virtual spaces using 3D software. I make renders for prints like the ones behind me. I do animations a lot on Instagram, and I make some 3D printed sculptures. So like some of these things behind me right here, just offhand. Yeah, I work anywhere from like art galleries to community spaces, public art, brand collaborations, and everything in between.
Cool. Yeah, I actually discovered your work, Alex, I think when you did Ryan Hemsworth music video. I think it was
no!
Vanilla, and I think that was the first time seeing 3D, but like rendered, like polished. You know how to, I don't know how to explain it, but the way you created those worlds were like, it looked real, but it was 3D, and it was around like 2016, I want to say. So it was like the first time, like to see like an artist work with a 3D artist, but like I don't know how to explain it. It just felt so real.
That's cool. I really appreciate the kind words.
Yeah. So my first question for the symposium is, like I said, we've seen a big surge of so much 3D work in augmented reality from filters and music videos. And I've only kind of seen it in the creative space, from music videos to movies. But do you guys see this going in further in other industries? Like, do you think other brands can adapt to this in regards to like e-commerce or like your everyday kind of brands? Do you see it going further even after COVID potentially ends, or do you feel like it kind of like settling down in terms of like augmented reality and 3D like visuals?
Great question. So definitely from our side as a technology company that's talking to a lot of brands and retailers and trying to have the conversation with them of like, what is it that you guys are looking for? Obviously digital is the forefront of the conversation at this point. Since there's been a dramatic fall in foot traffic and in-person spending. The primary focus is now on digital, and we've been very lucky to see that immersive is one of the main places that they're looking to spend their money. And when it comes to 3D design, that's at the center of all these conversations at this point. So it's not just a shift in the necessary technology in order to reach audiences, but it's also a shift in actually I would say even from graphic design to 3D design. That shift is happening right now as well, because there's everybody sees Snapchat and these Instagram filters going wild, right, and going viral. And I think that they want to be part of that revolution, and they're realizing that CG work, 3D, immersive is all going to be a key part of how their brand is relating to consumers in the future. And to address the second part of your question, I think that that there's going to be those brands that realize that they're better suited in that world, and that they would be just because they happen to have the right team or brand or sensibility or product, and they're going to be very successful during this period. And then why shift gears even when the transition back to normal occurs? I think that they're going to continue to be strong in that space, and spend a lot of money and time and effort, and look to collaborate with artists in that space, in the virtual and in the 3D design space. So I see it basically accelerating a shift that was already happening, and now brands just have an excuse to pool money from here and spend money over there.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's always like the artist's lot, is like we just kind of sitting waiting for the opportunities based on, like, before COVID, it was all these pop-ups. I was doing like video projections, and people were just like really focused on IRL experiences. So then me as a visual artist, then it's just like, okay, I gotta somewhat pivot my practice to like the demands of brands and what they want. They don't want to spend advertising dollars on paper print media anymore. They want to do experiences that don't feel like advertising. And now that we can't really do the pop-up things really in the same way, now where the dollars go, and it does make a lot of sense for AR spending, for creative. What that looks like is like, I don't know, I think it's always following the path of least resistance. And for an artist like myself, it's like, yeah, it's wonderful for me to be able to create like a dream world, an escape world, somewhere that somebody could leave their 300 square foot condo and explore this brand's wonderland. But how do you get them to that point? How do you get the user off of scrolling endlessly on Instagram into that mindset where they want to explore and have the bandwidth to do so?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it was a couple months ago I saw on your Instagram that you did like it was like a virtual art gallery, I believe, in the way it was like moving, and you kind of were experiencing an art show without having to go. And I feel like that's been a huge trend, like staying home. Even before COVID, it was like, oh, we're still gonna just chill and watch Netflix, we don't want to go out. And I think we kind of really pushed that and manifested it, so now we're really stuck at home and don't want to go out and be on our phones. So I think people that were the artists like you and Rene, focusing on like 3D, it really kind of helps you further push that, I guess, agenda in a cool way. But I've noticed a lot of 3D artists are crushing it and taking it to the next level.
Definitely very lucky that I figured this career path out well before, because yeah, like if I was a sculptor, I'd be doomed. If I required like real world materials or real world studio and having to cover the cost of that. So being virtual and being 3D in this time has been really advantageous.
Yeah, and then going back to like cost and like it being, like in terms of like doing stuff in real life, it does cost a lot. And Rene, I was going through kind of like your videos and talking about green screen versus like the AR virtual screen. So do you feel like that is some sort of like value prop you can pitch to like Hollywood? Because I feel like Hollywood is like the last industry to kind of adapt to things where they're like used to a certain way things are filmed. So do you think that's a struggle, kind of talking to them of like, let's ditch the green screen, it's so static. Let's get into these immersive spaces where it's cheaper, it's easier to kind of like edit and post-production, all that. Do you feel like that's a struggle, or is it kind of easy to pitch now?
Well, I've never heard the film industry described that way, but yeah, I guess it's true that that people are pretty set in their ways. The decision makers tend to be from a older generation, so you do see a lot of decisions being made because based on comfort and precedent and experience. But however, what's happened is two things. One is that experience isn't as relevant as it has been in the past, just because the traditional ways that you would save money on a production, which is like, moving to a nice tax incentive region or something like that. That's not as much of an option if you're going to be asking stars and crew and stuff to be quarantining for like a couple weeks or more. So that means that they're looking for other ways to achieve those shots and to achieve those scenes. Virtual production in general, which basically is the new revolution that's happening now, is everything real time. So not just LED backdrops, which is like the popular stuff that we've been involved with, but also moving green screen into a real time process as well for TV, live streams, live broadcasts, and that type of stuff. That's becoming much more accessible. And before, there was the issue of like, how do you get that looking good without like an extravagant amount of technology driving that the chroma key and the composite and everything like that. Now you can purchase something, a system that is affordable, that's capable of doing that on an independent TV production. So that's the type of thing that people are spending a lot of time on. Is basically, okay, I can't travel and I can't bring that exotic location to the production because it's just too specific. But what we can do is make an illusion of that location being behind the actor, with maybe some foreground elements that are physical, and that type of thing. And that's definitely going to be a shift. So the main thing that happened is that technology actually is now capable of achieving that. So there's a lot of great work that's been done by NVIDIA, by AMD, and the Epic Games team on Unreal Engine, to make sure that this real-time technology is something that isn't just for the Hollywood labs, but that's something that an independent artist can work on. And we've actually recently launched a product that takes it into the home. It's called Airfx Home Studio. So something that you would associate with like an Avatar or Star Wars level production is now possible at home. And that's because the technology shift has occurred. So the technology being ready, and then the pandemic kind of eliminating the relevance of a lot of the traditional players, has caused a sudden trend that's happening. So just to be clear, right now, we're working on more projects than we have than any time prior in the company's history. And we've been around for about 4 years. So that entire time we were having those conversations, but we just weren't getting as far as we are now in those conversations. So we're making sense from a cost perspective, and then virtual production is making sense from a logistical perspective to solve these creative problems right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I like that you mentioned a lot of my friends who are independent movie makers, the biggest struggle they have is like filming at different locations, and they're always just like, I don't have the budget to go, let's say, to like Australia or somewhere that just bring that story to life. And it's cool that you're able to, you know, purchase it on a reasonable cost and even bring it into your home and film it. Which I've seen your videos, it looks real, like it's not like a green screen. And I think that was the biggest struggle I feel like we've had from the past decade, is that you can tell a music video that's green screen versus the stuff that you've been doing. So that's really cool to see that happen. And plus,
Thank you.
I think it's beneficial to even the environment. Like, you can do all this in your home without even, destroying the planet. So I think that's a cool thing that you guys are doing. And it's cost effective and also looks good. So that's really cool.
Yeah, that's the whole endeavor, is to hit all of those elements. Make sense for the cast and crew, make sense for the producers, and make sense for the audience, that they're going to still get an incredible product. So like, if you can hit all of those, this is the 16th startup that I've worked at, just to be clear. Like, and I've seen every mistake that you could possibly make, and really focusing on addressing all those key concerns is where our product focus has been for the past 4 years. So thank you for mentioning that, because not everyone sees that. That is a relevant shift to be making. Yeah. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I always think about, like doing a project and how is it going to benefit the future. And speaking of that, might be a question for Alex, but in terms of like 3D and these future kind of visuals, I noticed, like you mentioned, like someone who makes sculptures, like where are they going to stand? So on our roster, we have like an array of artists. Some are, you know, they can pull off the 3D look, they can pull off doing a cool filter, and some can't. So do you think that, you know, 3D is for a particular artist, or is there a way to fuse it? Let's say Taylor Swift, for example, her whole album was like folklore and is going back to like the forest and very like human touch. Do you think there's a way that if she were to be like, I want to do a 3D music video, that's something that could happen, or do you think it's only for like a certain type of artist?
I think it's just about aesthetic, and right now, like, you know, 3D is so sophisticated that most things, you know, like are becoming indistinguishable from reality. I feel like if we're talking about Hollywood, we're talking about the content that Unreal puts out. Like, it's incredible that you can render things in Unreal in real time that look almost like real life. Video games that look like that. So I don't even feel like, before there was definitely an aesthetic and a type of culture associated, you know, with 3D artists, new media. It would have probably been like electronic artists, so folk artists, and it wouldn't have really made sense. But I've worked with bands. I've definitely worked with like Canadiana kind of folky bands before, and it's just like you pull out the wood grains, you pull out the paper, you pull out the, you know, just different aesthetic decisions so that it all kind of flows together, and it's like it can complement it. It's just another tool, you know what I mean? It's just another tool. It's just another color. And as long as it's used tastefully and appropriately and everybody's happy, then I think, yeah, sure. Taylor Swift folk album sounds cool.
Yeah, I just it's a hard pitch, especially for artists, where, because like you mentioned, there's so many ways you can use it tastefully. And so when you mention the words like AR, 3D, or something like so out of the box, a lot of artists are just like, oh, I don't think that's, not a lot of artists, but artists that are just kind of never done that before. Like, it's not a fit for me. This is maybe like something that's for more like a progressive artist or someone that does 3D. But I've been seeing a surge. I follow a bunch of hashtags that, like you said, if it's done right and it just looks good if you do it the right way and it fits your aesthetic.
Absolutely. And I think it's some the people that are apprehensive maybe present them with the finished product ahead of time. You know what I mean? So that they're like, oh, that's, you know, like.
But it takes it takes so much time to give the finished product. So like,
but even a reference of something else, like the Westworld intro, you know, it's just like, that looks like the piano in it's all virtual. Like everything is virtual, done in Unreal or C4D and Octane.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look. It looks tasteful. I don't know, like the crown, like all these title sequences. It's just like showing an artist who's apprehensive about using 3D or technology, something that's already been artfully done, and you're like, oh, what's like, that's not a real player piano or whatever. It's just like, okay, I'm on board. Let's get it done.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then kind of hopping back on that question, I've been noticing, since everyone has, well, most young artists and students have a lot of time on their hands, and they want to learn something. What do you guys, what advice you would give to someone who's, do you think they should go to school for it? Do you think they should hop on the YouTube tutorials? Like, what has worked best for you, and what do you think they should do in order to kind of get to where you guys are, or get some recognition? Because I feel like a lot of my friends, they see their work and they're like, this is awesome, and they hop onto Blender, or they see an app and they're like, this is crazy, it's so hard to do, and get discouraged. Like, what do you kind of recommend?
Well, I would say that I studied painting in school, and I loved working on the computer, but I never really loved painting. I didn't like getting my hands dirty. It wasn't for me. I liked the computer. So I would just download all the software and demos, whatever. I'd like look up YouTube videos of every single thing that was available to create the things that I was interested in creating. And I tried Blender. I tried my 3D Studio. I landed with Cinema 4D. It felt the most artist intuitive. And then it was like Render Engine. And then now it's like Game Engine. But it could be like, oh, you know what? Actually, I'm not really interested in the 3D rendering part. Maybe I'm more interested in the rigging part, maybe the motion capture part. So without exploring, you know, that initial part, it'd be hard to find the right stream for you. And I use Linda and I use YouTube as my tutors, and I was able to learn the things that I wanted to learn.
Right.
So early on, this is like over a decade ago.
Yeah.
I was making forests and things like that. Then I'd have people contact me, like ad agencies that like, oh, this is dope. Can you do this, this, and that? And I'm like, no, I'm actually really bad at 3D, but like, I'm going to try to figure it out. So I used a lot of Turbo Squid assets early on, and I still do, because I'm not very good at 3D, but I was able to like craft a look that worked for my art practice, right? Because of it. So it was in tandem. It was like the look I was looking for plus the look that the software gave me. But the recommendation is to try to teach yourself, if you're self-motivated, and try as many softwares as you can to find the right fit.
Yeah, I completely agree. I always stop when I see something, I'm always like, I wonder how they did that. And then I look at the long tutorials on Linda, and I'm like, this is a craft. I respect 3D visual artists, how much time it goes into it, because it's not just like, you know, I feel like there's so much rendering and cleaning up, and I can't imagine the drafts you go through from clients. So it is a tool that I think is in demand these days, especially with, as well as these experiences you create, Rene. Do you work with 3D artists, or does your team kind of like build these experiences out?
Yeah, so we do partner with artists who work in Unreal Engine and also Maya, 3D Studio Max Blender, all the modeling tools, and these work in tandem. So generally, somebody who is generating original content for Unreal Engine to be played back in Unreal Engine is grabbing it from all over the place. Turbo Squid, like Alex was saying, recently was in there doing a search for all sorts of different bushes and stuff. That's for a recent project. So yeah, my recommendation on this end would be basically almost exactly what Alex said. It's like you want to attack it any which way you can, any which way that's going to be available to you, and you want to be objective focused on when you're initially learning a new technique. Get in there, and it's like you have a hammer, right? And you can hammer one nail really, really well, right? If you can figure that out, you pretty much got the hammer. That's like what it's for, right? But if you can't figure it out that first time, then moving on is going to be difficult and being effective. So what I would always recommend is have a really, really focused target. And if it's great if that can be given to you by a client, but if not, come up with that yourself, something that's going to be significant to you. And the measure of that is going to be, are you going to be satisfied when you have that end result? If you're going to be satisfied and you're going to be proud and have something that's going to be kick-ass, then all of a sudden you've got something that's going to drive you to that end result. And once you do it that first time, and you feel that hammer and that nail connect and that drive in, and you have that satisfying moment that you yourself created, that's how I've learned everything. So I started off as an editor, actually, and then got into 3D design, post-production, visual effects, all that kind of stuff, and then got into Unreal Engine in real time and messing about in there. So really taking it baby steps and feeling like this is going to be a continual process. And just to be clear, even like I've worked at major studios where 20-year veterans are looking stuff up on Google tutorials, because the fact is that it's moving so quickly. You're never going to know absolutely everything. And even if you've used a specific tool for decades even, you're probably going to be learning something new just because they're coming out with new stuff. So that's that. Don't feel ashamed at all that you're not getting spoken to by some professor or something like that in order to learn. You're gonna have a success just based on you having the knowledge and not worrying about where that's coming from. And that would be my advice there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would suggest that people go to school to learn something like good about the world, and then they can communicate their ideas or the ideas of others through their chosen platform. But like you said, these softwares change so much that it would be wild if I went to school for Photoshop 5 or something. What good is that for me now? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I feel like the same way where like everything, like I've self-taught like I don't do Photoshop and Illustrator, but in terms of like marketing creative, you just kind of have to like know it, because you're gonna always get that, you know, that artist or that client's gonna be like, I need to move this around, I need to do this, and you're just like, oh, you can't call up the graphic designer at 2 a.m. So I've kind of like self-taught in that way. But in terms of these 3D, I'm obsessed with 3D type. I've been seeing it so much, so I've been using that, trying to pitch that to artists, because it just looks so clean and it looks so nice with the music in the background, and it just makes it more enticing to click on the ad. I feel like that also helps too. But yeah, in terms of all of this, I have a last question because I wanted to wrap this up within like 30 minutes, but maybe I can ask you first, Alex, what would be like one project or campaign that you feel like, you know, you were doing the right thing and this is something you want to continue doing for the rest of your life, or just a campaign that sticks out that you're really proud of?
it's funny
Or
that
project, sorry.
the Harrison video with Ryan Hemsworth. I was just looking at it recently because I've been doing all these music videos for artists, and I have one coming out at 5 p.m. today. I did a bunch of lyric videos for Lido, and like it's so wonderful as visual artists to be able to help my musician friends out doing visuals for them, because they're supposed to be on the road doing tours and all that. So I would say that doing like a video like that was definitely an amazing thing, because I got to do something that was fun and rewarding for me, but also could help other people, you know, see their music, see just like you're creating another part, you know, creating another sound almost. You're like another part of the band member, you know, when you're working on a music video.
Right.
And for me growing up, that was a big entry point into enjoying like film and video, where these like hip hop videos that were 11 minutes long, they were cinematic and they were engaging. And I would love to create just a little bit of something that maybe a kid watches now and is like, oh shoot, maybe I am interested in becoming a visual artist, or, you know, like furthering that discussion.
Absolutely.
For myself, we did a campaign for HBO for the premiere of Watchmen, and we actually put up an experiential right there in the front of the Cinerama Dome in Hollywood. And definitely the first time that any type of virtual production setup had been set up on a Hollywood sidewalk. I can definitely say that for sure. And it was really exciting because we got all sorts of people coming through, being able to experience the technology. We got the stars and creators of the series in front of the screen, recording some footage for Instagram and that type of stuff. And it was really crazy to think that, you know, you're an actor or you're a creator and you finish these projects, and then almost like a year goes by, and then all of a sudden you're seeing a screening where you're like inside that world, and you're like, was I inside that world? I guess I was, like a year ago. But in this case, they came to the premiere and they actually got to experience like the visuals of the Watchmen world on this gigantic screen, and then got to take some video footage in front of it. So it almost was like ripping something off the screen and bringing it onto the sidewalk. It was a really interesting experience to have that, and to just also to see everyone responding to the technology in a positive way in a circumstance where they wouldn't expect to see anything close to that. So yeah, that's was really interesting to me. Also, the show was also pretty freaking good in my opinion. So we were really proud to be working on that one.
Absolutely. Awesome. Cool. I think that wraps up all my questions. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. I'm obsessed with stuff like this. I feel like it's 2020 and I always kind of like, I don't know if you guys do this, but like you see those memes where it's like what you thought 2020 is going to be like, and everything's like futuristic and like flying cars, and I'm always driving and I'm like, why aren't we there yet? So this is like a step to that, I guess. When I see work like what you do, Rene and Alex, it's just like we're almost there. I'm just hoping a couple more years we can be there, because I think that stuff is awesome. And I appreciate you guys coming to this and participating. It really helps seeing your perspective on your end, and how it kind of works, and people can hear that, and hopefully, you know, encourages our viewers to kind of get into this industry. And there is a need for it. I just think it's, you know, like you said, just practice and kind of just see how things work, and there's no harm in looking at a tutorial. So yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Absolutely.